Hello everyone, the Green Scorpion here, and Father's Day is June 19th this year. And I hope you're prepared. There are many kinds of families out there, and not everyone has a loving male progenitor with whom to share this occasion with, but I for one am blessed with a man whose name I share, Oscar Duarte Sr. He has not only been a father to me, he's also been a mentor and one of my greatest friends. It's also because of him that I have the opportunities I have today, since he and my mother immigrated to the US from Honduras all those years ago. I can boast about my achievements all I want, but it's safe to say that if it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't be the man I am today. And so, in honor of him, I'm making a video that, ironically, I'm pretty sure he'll never watch. But hey, if you have a father figure in your life who enjoys pointless rumination on fictional electronic characters, maybe share this video with him. I think the rules here are self-explanatory, so let's hop right in. These are the top 10 worst fathers in video games. Why not do the best fathers? Because I think this is funnier. Though, if anyone is wondering, the best father is Octodad. Let's get started. It's really easy to come back to The Legend of Zelda for these lists. With so many wacky quest-giving NPCs, I had quite a selection of faltering fathers to consider. How about Talon, whose narcolepsy leaves Lon Lon Ranch and his daughter Malon to fall into the envious, lustful hands of Ingo? Or Gepra from Skyward Sword, who seems way too okay with his daughter Zelda being kidnapped by the forces of darkness. But after really diving deep into the waters of Zeldapedia, I finally fished out the biggest failure of fatherhood, His Highness King Zora de Bon XIV. King Zora is the ruler of Zora's domain and a trusted ally of the Hylian royal family, but look at this guy. The only thing he rules is the refrigerator and the TV remote. Now, I could get strung up on the little things, like how after 16 generations, he didn't pass on the Zora title to his only offspring, but the only real factor here is his refusal to move an inch for his daughter. Princess Ruto has gone missing, having last been seen feeding the Zora's patron deity, Lord Jabu Jabu. So naturally, the first place I'll look will be Jabu Jabu's pool. If you could just... Sir, Your Highness, could you just scooch over a bit? You're kind of blocking the only doorway. Would you move? Of course you keep talking to him and all he'll say is that he's utterly beside himself without his daughter. Well, could you move beside yourself so I can get past? As much as he acts like a caring parent, his amphibian apathy for the entire situation is just move! Only when you found a letter from Ruto saying that she's been eaten by Jabu Jabu will he let you pass. Well, that's so nice of you to let me save your daughter instead of your aquatic soldiers. Wait, if you guard the only way to Jabu Jabu, shouldn't you have noticed that she went to feed him and never came back? And holy Hylia, does this guy take forever to move aside! Having saved Ruto, you won't need to return to the domain until you're all grown up and find that Ganondorf has frozen the entire cave. Sure enough, you find His Highness, frozen solid, still sitting off to the side of the entrance to the shrine. I can only assume that this wad of blubber hasn't moved in 7 years. I will say that, in his defense, Princess Ruto grows up to be the Sage of Water, and if you count Hyrule Warriors, kind of a badass. And in the credits to Ocarina of Time, when everyone else is celebrating, King Zora is actually sulking in the corner with Mito, too upset to never be seeing his little girl again. That's actually kind of touching, but Ruto, you're better off without him. Spread your fins and swim, little fishbird. When I first conceived this list, I knew right away that I would have a place of dishonor for Jecht, Tidus' father from Final Fantasy X. However, as I looked over the plot from Jecht's perspective, I discovered I couldn't put him as high as I originally planned to. See, when you play the game as Tidus, what you see is a drunk, verbally abusive dad who ran out on his family, causing Tidus' mother to fall into depression that eventually took her life. But from his side of the story, well, just strap in. Jecht and Tidus live in a neon city called Zanarkand. Actually, they live in a magical recreation of Zanarkand being dreamt up by the spirits called the Fate, but neither of them know that, so it's going to be a lot easier if you just say that they're from a different world. Jecht is the greatest blitzball player Zanarkand has ever known, and he wants to pass that legacy on to his son. He does this by ruining every moment he has with Tidus, calling him crybaby, pushing him past his limits, and overall just being a real Marlboro. There is no excuse for this. However, Jecht didn't run out on his family. While training in the ocean, Jecht was suddenly transported by the Fate to Spira, the real world, with no means of return. It was during this time that Jek became the friend of a summoner called Braska, and protected him on his pilgrimage to defeat a world-threatening Leviathan called Sin. When Tidus later comes to Spira, he can find video diary entries from Jek that recount his adventures, and Jek often talks about how much he misses his son, and how he was never able to tell him he loved him.
Remember, you're my son. And, well, never mind, I'm no good at these things.
Well, that's pretty sweet, I guess, but Jek, kids need to hear these things from their parents. I know you didn't expect to be leaving your family, but when you did, all Tidus had to remember you by was the scorn and abuse. Just look at this stream sequence.
Gonna cry again, cry. That's the only thing you're good for.
Now this here is a dream, not a flashback. So it's possible that all of his father's insults are just exaggerated in Tidus' mind, but regardless, this is how he really thinks his father feels about him, and it shaped him into a nervous wreck. I mean, at least Ruto is really cool in Hyrule Warriors. Tidus... well, I guess he has fans. Anyway, on his journey with Braska, Jek is forced to become Braska's final Aeon to defeat Sin, meaning that eventually he'll become the new Sin as part of a vicious ongoing cycle. He does send his best friend Auron back to Zanarkand to watch over and train Tidus, who's pretty much the coolest godfather you could ever hope for. It's almost a good thing Tidus hates his father so much because it helps him to slay Jekt, and thanks to some forethought put in by Jekt, Auron, and Braska, Tidus and the party are guided not only to defeat Sin, but the forces that cause him to reincarnate, ending the vicious cycle forever. The unfortunate consequence here is that this makes Jek the first on our list to actually try to kill his son. He'll eventually turn Tidus' girlfriend to stone and shatter her into a million pieces if he gets a chance. But hey, he's possessed by Yu Yevon, so he can't really help it. By dying to Tidus, Jek undergoes self-sacrifice for the betterment of Spira. So Jek's terrible parenting is actually kind of what makes him a hero to the realm. High five! Soul Calibur isn't the easiest continuity to follow, so if I get some things wrong here, do try to forgive me. On the surface though, Cervantes and Ivy's relationship can be summed up as this. He's never there for her, and when he is there for her, he's trying to kill her. Well, let's sift through the backstory and see if there's any redeemable qualities beneath the surface. Cervantes de Leon lost his own father, a Spanish privateer, pretty early, and Cervantes became a pirate shortly afterward. He had already raised some notoriety when he came to possess the Demon Blade Soul Edge, or should I say that the blade came to possess him. So Cervantes was corrupted by the blade and forced to satiate its unending appetite for souls, lest he lose his own for failing. Cervantes took on the appearance of a ghost and was now bound to the blade in body, mind, and spirit. So can we say Cervantes was never in control of his actions? Perhaps, but then he seemed to like having such a powerful weapon, and I don't think he ever put up much resistance. He even went above and beyond the call of Soul Edge by seeking out a new vessel for it in case he died. That would be his daughter, Ivy, who was conceived when Cervantes captured a barmaid and... Okay, no. Cervantes, I don't want to talk about that. We're trying to have a good time here, okay? That's why I'm not bringing up Jean's dad on here, you know? So anyway, Cervantes' illegitimate daughter was born only as a backup host for Soul Edge, and as a baby was left on a family's doorstep while her mother died and her father continued carousing and soul stealing. So not only do you want to have a daughter just to offer her up to your demon patron, you won't even put in the time to raise her? What is this, the 16th century? Oh, I guess it is. But still. What keeps Cervantes so low is that he and Ivy don't interact as much as you would expect in canon. Of course, an absent father is a pretty bad kind of father, but it doesn't give us that much to talk about. And at least Cervantes and Ivy are usually paired up for Destined battles, but their banter doesn't usually go anywhere. Around Soul Calibur 4, Cervantes decides to cash in Ivy, specifically seeking her out to, as the wiki puts it, devour her sweet soul. Why specifically Ivy? I guess the idea is that since she's Cervantes' blood, it will keep Soul Edge from eating him longer? Or he's just picking on her for no reason. Well, between Soul Calibur 4 and 5, they have a final confrontation and Ivy takes him out and destroys all the evil inside him. Cervantes wakes up sometime later, finally free of Soul Edge's influence, and immediately goes to Ivy and apologizes for his misdeeds. No, that's a lie. He returns to the seas and continues his life of swashbuckling thievery. Oh, and still has his destined battle against Ivy. Yeah, at this point we can't really blame Soul Edge for his crappy parenting if he's just going to act the same way without it. And no, I'm not going to say that Ivy's wardrobe choices are a result of daddy issues, but if you want to go all Freudian on it, be my guest.
Pointed. What a useless daughter.
Big Boss, Naked Snake, Venom Snake, whatever you want to call him, he's another case of a great hero turned terrible father. I guess you could say that Big Boss was the hero long enough to see himself become the villain. After losing his own parental figure and taking down Shagohod, Big Boss was asked by his friends Major Zero and Revolver Ocelot to help form the Patriots, a secret coalition that came to control the US government and most of the world's military operations. Over time, as an American commando and a freelance mercenary, Boss's battlefield prowess has become so great that it was written into his DNA, and Zero planned one day to use his cells for the Human Genome Project. Unfortunately, Big Boss was becoming disenchanted with the Patriots, and fearing he would leave, Zero initiated top priority project Les Enfants Terribles, cloning Big Boss without his express commission into 2, and eventually 3, sons. Unlike Cervantes, Big Boss never wanted kids. Actually, he had seen his fair share of radiation during his services, so I don't think that was an option anyway. When Big Boss found out about the Les Enfants Terribles project, he left the Patriots, confirming Zero's worst fears in a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. So let's talk about those two kids, the twin snakes as they're called. Liquid Snake was augmented in the womb, given all of the dominant soldier traits of his father to be the perfect soldier, while David, who would come to be known as Solid Snake, was used as a sink for all of the inferior traits. Yet even though Liquid was genetically superior, for some sick reason, Dr. Clark told him that he was given all of the recessive traits. So these two had their fates determined for them. Again, Big Boss didn't do this himself, or even want the clones, but by leaving without even looking at them, Big Boss basically allowed all of this to be done to them. Meanwhile, his 70-plus military operations left him unable to relate to the real world anymore, so while running his American mercenary band Foxhound, Boss secretly founded Outer Heaven, envisioned as a country expressly for soldiers where they could live in pleasant, constant warfare. And to protect it, he commissioned the creation of Metal Gear, a walking tank that can launch nuclear warheads. Does this sound like a good idea? While living this double life between Foxhound and Outer Heaven, Big Boss suddenly found that David, his son, had been assigned to his unit. He wasn't a big fan of having to acknowledge one of his sons, but he eventually trained him to be a great soldier and infiltrator, gave him the codename Solid Snake, and even told him the origin of his creation. So besides the nasty smoking habit he passed on, he's finally stepping up to be a good father, right? Well, that brings us to the first Metal Gear game. The US government discovers Outer Heaven in Metal Gear, and instructs Foxhound to take it down. To stall for time, Big Boss sends Snake, his least experienced recruit, to take on Metal Gear single-handedly, knowing that Snake's inevitable failure would buy Outer Heaven the time it needs to finish Metal Gear. The only problem is, Snake turns out to be pretty good and succeeds at every turn. In a difficult position, Big Boss resorts to attempting to get Snake killed, first by instructing him to fall into traps, then by stepping in and attempting to murder Snake himself. Father of the Year, ladies and gentlemen. And this isn't the only time either. In Snake's Revenge, Big Boss returns to try and finish the job, only this time, he's a cyborg. You have to consider the ramifications of choosing Snake to infiltrate Outer Heaven, not just as a suicide mission and a wild goose chase, but a solo expedition to take down a dangerous nuclear mech. Big Boss has actually forced his son to go through the same scenario that he had to go through to dismantle the Shagohod. And he's actively trying to make him fail. What's wrong with you? So after the second 8-bit game, Big Boss is dead. Well, he's not, but just go with it. How did Liquid turn out? Raised with an extreme inferiority complex, Liquid takes to hating his father and trying to outdo him by driving his old team Foxhound to build their own Metal Gear and try to succeed where his father failed. All this only to be taken down by Solid Snake. Well, now one of Boss's sons is dead, and Boss never even sent him a birthday card. And what about the third one? Solid Snake is created to be a true clone of Big Boss under the thumb of the Patriots. He grows up to be the president under the name of George Sears. So that's good. But then he revolted against the Patriots, started a criminal organization, and had his spine severed by Raiden. So, not a great life. Eva then used some of his body parts to restore Big Boss from his mechanical body, and then when Big Boss awoke from what was actually a comatose state, Solidus's body was used as a decoy while Boss fled. Now granted, a lot of Big Boss's negative influence on his sons wasn't directly his doing, but his legacy and his lack of direct involvement doomed his sons to a world even more corrupt and unforgiving than his own. Even Naomi Hunter, a girl Boss once rescued, infected Snake with the virus Foxdie to avenge Big Boss. This deadly virus made Snake age rapidly, cost him a possible life with Meryl, and almost forced him to take out his own life to keep the virus from spreading. Big Boss reemerges one final time in Metal Gear Solid 4, where he and Snake bury the hatchet and share probably the most touching scene in the entire series. But dude, that's only 1 out of 3 kids who aren't even remotely happy. That's an F for fatherhood.
It's been a long time, Snake.
You wanna know what the worst thing about Haytham Kenway is? He's actually more interesting than his son. If Connor didn't have the cool tomahawks and Native American fighting techniques, I'd say Haytham should have been the star of Assassin's Creed 3. Without going too much into plot detail, again, Assassin's Creed is a saga about a war between the Assassins and the Templars, a rivalry spanning millennia, circling the goal of understanding the ancient civilization called the Precursors, and unless you play all the games and read 7 novels worth of lore, none of these factions ever make any freaking sense. So whatever it is that they're trying to do, Haytham was the son of an assassin who, after his father's murder, was raised as an agent of the Templars. He's sent by his order to the British colonies of America in order to better establish the Templars in the New World, as well as search for a possible Precursor's vault. During his time here, he gets involved with a Native American woman who later, unbeknownst to Haytham, gives birth to his son Connor. Connor grows up in the tribe until it's ransacked by colonials and meets Achilles, an old rival of Haytham's who trains him in the way of the assassin. So, you have a father and a son who, through a strange twist of fate, end up on opposite sides of an ongoing battle for whatever Assassins and Templars do. Well, that's unfortunate, but Haytham sinks to some pretty impressive lows and is sure to make this personal. The first time Haytham realizes Connor's parentage is when the young man is incarcerated in Bridewell Prison after stopping one of Haytham's men from assassinating George Washington. And what is the first thing Haytham does upon learning this knowledge? He pushes for Connor to be executed without a trial. What a guy. When Haytham's ex-ally Benjamin Church steals supplies from the colonial army, Connor and Haytham become unlikely allies. Haytham wants to make Church pay for betraying him, and besides, the states getting independence from the British would actually make it easier for the Templars to take over, and Connor just wants to help the colonials gain freedom, so father and son put aside their differences, or at least they would if Haytham wasn't a horrible team player. He callously murders people that Connor wants to protect, he runs ahead and leaves you stranded, he never explains what he's doing, he endlessly degrades you while you're trying to drive your ship, and he keeps ordering you around, saying that you have to listen to him because you're his son. As if they have any kind of normal father-son relationship. Then eventually, Haytham reveals that it was George Washington who ordered the attacks on Connor's tribe. Does it benefit his plans at all to tell him now? No. Could he have told him this earlier? Yes! He waited until this moment to tell him just to hurt Connor. That's the only thing this action could ever have accomplished. And this line really ticks me off.
You oppose tyranny, injustice. These are just symptoms. Their true cause is human weakness. Why do you think I keep on trying to show you the error of your way?
No, you don't! You haven't shown Connor anything, Haytham! All you do is act snarky and give vague explanations about freedom and philosophy. If you want to show Connor why you believe in the way of the Templar, then start by explaining what the Templars actually do, specifically! And while you're at it, explain to me because this game isn't doing it! So in the end, Connor goes after Charles Lee, and Haytham steps in to defend him. Connor has to fight Haytham while drugged, and Daddy doesn't pull any punches. Here he gives probably the most comprehensive explanation of his goals you'll ever get, which would be nice if you weren't busy trying to defend yourself. He doesn't even have the decency to die in a cool way. He's strangling Hatham, then a QuickTime event pops up and boop, dead. You'd think he'd know not to leave Connor's concealed blades free. That's kind of the main thing he does.
Still, I'm proud of you in a way. You've shown great conviction, strength, courage. All noble qualities. I should have killed you long ago.
Well, that just says it all, doesn't it? Rotten hell, Hatham. He was a Templar first, and a father dead last. Patriot, warrior, arrogant douchebag. Wow, I'm getting mad now. I'm gonna need a break. I'll be back soon with the bottom 5, guys. Thanks for watching. And while you're at it, call your dads and tell them you love them.